What is up, guys? My name is Lex. Welcome back to the vlog. We are here in Dallas, Texas at Texas Card House. Tonight we're playing on a live stream. I'm out here in the parking lot getting hyped up to play a 5, 10, probably a $20 straddle game. Gonna start out buying in for $3,000. Don't want to get too crazy too fast, but should be a good game. Hopefully we play some big pots. Hopefully we run good too. So let's get down to the action. Let's go. Here we go, guys. We are sitting at the table, $3,000 in our stack, and we look down at 5, 6 of hearts. The very first hand we end up playing here, we make it $35. Pretty standard opening size here. It folds all the way to the big blind, who ends up making the call. Heads up now to a board of 10, 5, deuce, 2 clubs. When my opponent checks to me, I should have the best hand here a lot of the time. I don't expect him to have any over pairs on this board because he would 3-bet that pre-flop. He could have a 10 sometimes, so I put out a small protection / thin value bet of $30, and my opponent ends up making the call here. The turn card is the 9 of hearts, and when my opponent eventually checks it over to me, there's not many hands I can get value from betting here, and I'm not going to be turning my hand into a bluff on this board. However, we see he does have queen jack, so this is one of those hands that we could have gotten value from if we kept betting here, but I'm trying to get to showdown with my pair. I decide to check back. The river is the 3 of clubs, and now things get pretty interesting. I don't have much history playing with this opponent. I played on the live stream with him last week, and we didn't really get into any hands here. So whenever he leads out for $75 on this river card, I think he can have a wide range of hands. He can have some bluffs like the hand he has, which is queen jack. He can be going for thin value with hands like king 10 or queen 10. He can even have a 9 here, like 8, 9 suited that he's going for value with. And he can even be blocker betting with a better 5 like ace 5 or king 5 suited. It would really suck here, hero calling with a 5 and having him show me 8, 9 or ace 5. So I think my options are fold or raise. I can raise here and try to put a lot of pressure on his one pair hands, which is exactly what I decide to do. I turn my 5 into a bluff and raise it up here to $280. My reasoning for bluff raising here is I'm trying to get him off a one pair hand. If he has a 10, he's going to be in a pretty tough spot here. I have a very tight table image. I haven't played many hands, and I also haven't been caught bluffing, so I think he's going to give me a lot of respect here. If he has a 9 or a 5, he's just going to let this one go. Obviously, we can see here he only has queen high. He's got no other choice here but fold. We end up taking down this pot.
A big one.
Maybe, yeah, it might have. Yeah, you might have.
Like true to form, Lexo just found a way to get a little extra value with the 5, 6 suited on the end.
Moving right along here, about 45 minutes into the stream, Bob Ross makes it $40. I have 10-8 offsuit on the button and decide to call a pretty loose passive play here. Obviously, this hand is very mediocre, but it's only a 4-hour stream, and I want to get in there. I want to play some hands, so on the button, I'm going to be calling with a wider range of hands, so we end up going heads up to the flop, which we completely miss, but Bob Ross does check it over to me. Whenever he checks his flop, I put him on a lot of ace, king, or queen high hands that totally miss, so I'm going to start a bluff here with my 10 high, representing one pair hands like 6s, 7s, 8s, 9s, and 10s, and flush draws, so he ends up check calling, which is kind of surprising to me, going to the turn, which is the king of diamonds. Pretty bad card for us. Whenever you are pulling a bluff, you have to have your bluff make sense. Whenever I bet on the flop, I was representing a 6, maybe an overpair like 7s, 8s, and 9s, and a flush draw, so when the turn comes a king, obviously a scare card if I had those hands like 7s, 8s, and 9s, or a 6, and it's going to help his range a lot more than it's going to help mine. So if I continued to bet on this turn card, it really wouldn't make much sense. I would be representing such a narrow range of 4, 5, and pocket 6s, deuces, and 3s. And obviously, people just don't believe you whenever you're representing such a narrow range. They usually just tend to call down. So on this turn card, think it's a bad turn card for me to continue to bluff, so I decide to check this one back. The final card is the 9 of hearts, bringing in that front door flush draw, and Bob Ross decides to check for a third time, which we can assume he wouldn't do if he had made a flush. So now I have two options. I can check back 10 high and lose a lot of the time, or I can turn my hand into a bluff. I would bet a flush draw on the flop, check back on the turn, and bet the river with it, so I decide to go for it, turning my 10 high into a bluff. I make it $115. Like I said before, we want our bluffs to make sense, so let's pretend like I actually had a flush draw. I would bet that on the flop, and if he called and the turn is a king of diamonds, I would most likely check that back, just trying to realize my equity, and if the river hit my flush, I would definitely be betting it, so this line is pretty credible. This is exactly how I would play an actual flush. He thinks for a while, but decides to let his hand go.
Going to lay it down.
Interessante.
Oh, getting it done, man. 2 for 2, this guy.
A couple interesting hands so far. About 20 minutes later, we have pocket deuces under the gun +1, make it $35. Kind of a loose play, but we want to get in there. We want to be playing some hands. Folds all the way over to Sam Clark, who also has a poker vlog. If you guys don't follow him, make sure to go check out his channel. He ends up 3-betting me. He raises it up here to $125 in the cutoff. Folds all the way back over to me, and I have 300 big blinds in my stack, and he covers me, so this is a pretty easy set mining opportunity here. I decide to make the call. We are heads up here. In a 3-bet pot, the dealer collects the chips and puts out the board of 7, 7, 8 rainbow. We have an under pair here. I check it over to Sam, who thinks for a little bit of time and decides to check this one back. The turn is a 3. Whenever Sam checks back the flop, I put him on a lot of ace high or Broadway cards that totally miss. So on this turn card, I decide to check again. I don't think betting here is very good. Obviously, there's not many hands I can get value from, but I could induce him to bluff with some of his ace or king eye hands, which he does decide to do. He makes it $150. There's a possibility that Sam could be slow playing aces, kings, and queens here. He understands that this board is going to hit my range more than it's going to hit his, and he might only think he can get 2 streets of value from a worse pair. So that's a possibility too. So we go to the river, which is the 10 of clubs. Pretty interesting card here, and I decide to go with an unorthodox line. So whenever I see this river card, I decide that I'm going to lead out here. I want to win this pot, and if he has ace high or king high, he's going to check back this river, and I'm going to win. But if he does have those aces, kings, and queens, if I put out a big bet here, he might be in a tough spot and maybe hero fold those hands. So I decide to lead out here, putting those one pair hands into a tough spot. I make it $505.
With the ducks.
Full pot.
Love it. The overbet looks like. Nope. Okay. Yeah. Full pot.
Nice bet.
Nice bet, Lexi.
Turns out we were bluffing with the best hand, but we end up taking down this pot. We are 3 for 3 so far, up about $500 or $600 on the session. The very next hand, we have king 5 of hearts in the cutoff, make it $35. We end up getting 2 callers, heads up to the flop of queen 9 5 1 heart. When it checks to me on this flop with bottom pair, I decide to check this one back, going to the turn, which is the deuce of hearts, now giving us a pair and the king high flush draw. The small blind leads out for $50. Jason calls $50, and I think I just have a pretty standard call here. A raise wouldn't make too much sense, so I flick in the chips. We end up going to the river, which is pretty good for us. It's the 4 of hearts giving us a flush.
Is this how your month has been going
so.
the entire time, Lexi?
Lexo goes perfect, turn and river, and it's the king high flush versus 2 other opponents who have hands of their own. Heisenberg,
Put out,
it's going to be hard for him to fold, I think.
Yeah, put out $300, Lex.
Pretty close.
305. Love it.
You didn't go over.
I decide to go big on this river, trying to make it look like a bluff. I make it $305. Shout out to Miami-Dade County. Heisenberg pretty quickly calls with his queen. Jason thinks it over for a little bit of time and decides to fold. We show the king 5 of hearts for a flush, and it is good. We end up taking down our 4th pot here, running pretty good so far on the stream.
Was having been a professional CrossFit athlete and a wrestler to now like doing this thing for 8 months and people recognizing him on the street. It's just crazy.
Raise it. 14 to go.
Oh my God. And here we go. Ace king
A real
for
hand
Lexi.
for Lexo now. Homemade with king, queen.
Cold calling. Now getting just the most phenomenal price ever, even out of position. 9-8 puts in the call. And
Gosh, terrible flop.
yeah, but it's one that Lex gets to win on. Just, I mean, he does.
Yeah,
in
he's
fact
got to
have
feel
the
safe
best hand.
continuing.
Oh yeah, this is a 100% mandatory continuation bet. Goes for 175. Lets her go. Lets him go. Lexo, no sweat. Taking it down with the ace king.
We pick up ace king suited, we 3-bet pre-flop, c-bet, and take it down. As you guys can see, we are up about $1,200 so far. Next up, we end up losing about $300 when we 3-bet ace king again, and end up losing to homie's 2-pair. Moving on to the next hand. We have a beautiful king queen suited under the gun +1, raise it to $35. We end up getting 2 callers before Bob Ross in the big blind decides to re-raise us. He makes it $185. The action folds back around to me, and now we have a decision to make. One thing I've noticed in these Texas live stream games is 3-bet squeezes out of position are very common, which means that Bob Ross isn't always going to have a monster here, so I contemplate my options between call or 4-bet.
I would be tempted to 4-bet if I'm Lexo.
Man, it feels dicey four-handed.
Put in the 4-bet, Lex.
Play a big one. Let's play a big one time, Lex.
Oh, yes.
Let's play the biggest pots. Let's have some coolers.
4-bet.
Let's have some coolers and big pots.
Lexi, man.
With all that said earlier, I decided to put in the 4-bet bluff with king queen suited. If I get called here, I can play in position with a great hand. If he folds, that is even better. We can take down over $200 pre-flop. He looks back at his cards and decides to give them back to the dealer, so we end up taking down this one with king high.
Lexo just has all the pairs.
Nice play.
Man.
Better to
Love
fold.
it. Lex,
Dude, this guy
my
Lex
man.
is not a recreational player. This guy travels the country poning noobs in mid-stakes poker.
The commentators are definitely hyping me up here, which I appreciate. And before this stream started, I told myself I want to play fun, exciting poker. I want people to enjoy watching me play, so I want to pull some bluffs. I want to put some 3-bets and some 4-bets, and luckily I've had some hands that allow me to do that. Next up here, Deva opens up under the gun to $40. Bob Ross makes a call. We have 8-6 suited in the cutoff and decide to call as well. 4 ways to a board of ace, jack, 7, 2 hearts. We flop the 8 high flush draw with a backdoor straight draw. The under the gun player puts out a c-bet, a smaller c-bet. Bob Ross calls, and I think I only have one option here. I could be raising sometimes, but this board should be hitting the initial raiser's range a lot harder than it's going to hit mine. He's going to have aces, jacks, and ace, jack, and ace, king. So I decide to just make the call here with my 8 high flush draw, going 3 ways to the turn. Deuce of hearts on the turn, giving us a flush. Under the gun player thinks for a little bit of time and decides to check. Bob Ross checks next to act, and now the action is over on us, and I actually thought about checking this one back, trying to play very deceptive, maybe letting one of my opponents bluff, but there's a lot of hands that I can get called by. There's ace x of hearts I can get called by, maybe king queen with the king of hearts, king jack with the king of hearts, queen jack with the queen of hearts. There's a lot of hands here I can get value from, so I put out a bet. I make it $220. Both of my opponents end up folding. We end up taking down this pot with an 8 high flush. This next hand we look down at 9-6 offsuit in the small blind, but we are wearing Bob Ross's wig, so we got to get a little screen time. I pretend like I'm tanking a little bit so the camera stay on me, and obviously this is just a joke. I'm not going to be doing anything here with 9 high. I just let this one go. Over the next hour, we pick up some trash hands, literally folding for 1 hour straight, not picking up any playable hands here, which is pretty annoying. The stream is only 4 hours long, so I want to have some hands I can get in there with. With 30 minutes left in the live stream, we decide to bump up the stakes. 5, 10, 20 now. Under the gun, Bob Ross, aka Sam Clark, raises to $75. Folds all the way over to the old Bob Ross on the button, who decides to put in a 4-bet. He re-raises up to $400. The action now folds back over to me, and I look down at pocket 10s in the big blind, and this is a very interesting spot. Okay, so this is what was going through my head. Sam Clark opens up under the gun +1 to $75, which is pretty strong. He should have a strong hand here, and now Bob Ross 3-bets an under the gun raiser in a straddle pot to $400. Bob Ross has not been 3-betting very often. He 3-bet once with pocket kings and then once with ace queen. So here with pocket 10s, I'm in a very weird spot. I don't want to cold call a 3-bet out of position with pocket 10s for a few reasons. The straddlers could wake up with a hand and put in a 4-bet. Sam Clark could put in a 4-bet. And also Bob Ross should have a pretty strong hand here, 3-betting an under the gun +1 open. I could put in a re-raise 4-bet myself, but then I got to get through the straddlers. I got to get through Sam Clark, and I got to get through Bob Ross, who should have a pretty strong hand. So unfortunately, I think my only option here, I'm only $5 invested in the pot, is to fold. It turns out to be a bad fold until we see...
Yes. Oh, dude. Oh, so
Lexo
gross.
just because he reads souls, man.
Just knew.
He reads mother freaking souls.
Homie wakes up with pocket aces next to act. If I put in the 4-bet, I would have been punished, and I'm sure if I would have cold called the $400, he probably would have put in a massive 4-bet himself, so we end up getting out cheap there, pocket 10s. Unfortunately, that is the last hand we play on stream. We end up moving to the 2-5 tables to play some cash games out there. We add on to match the biggest stack of the table. Now we have about $5,000 in our stack before looking down at ace-king suited in the small blind. There's a limp, a raise to 15, a call for 15. I 3-bet to $75 in the small blind. The limper calls, initial raiser calls, and the button calls, going 4 ways to the flop. Queen, deuce, 3, 2 diamonds. We do have 2 overcards, but I'm not going to be bluffing into all these players at a position with not much equity, so I check, and the action checks all the way around. The turn card is a jack, now giving us a gut shot to a 10, but I'm going to continue to check here, and it checks all the way around again, going to the river, which pairs the board. I check for a 3rd time, and now the limper, who has a short stack of only $110, decides to go all in, which doesn't make much sense. I feel like if he had any piece of the board with such a small stack, he would have went all in on the flop or the turn. So when it folds back to me and I have ace high on this board, given a pretty good price, I decide to make the hero call.
I think I'm gonna have to W up.
Called.
The limper shows king 9 for nothing. We have ace high, which is going to beat that. It wasn't easy, but we end up taking down this pot here, moving into the last hand of the night. Under the gun limps, small blind calls. I have ace 4 suited in the big blind, raise it to $35. Only the limper ends up making the call, so heads up to a flop of 6 deuce 6. I should have a range advantage on this board, and I can bluff on later streets, so I decide to start out with a small bet. I make it $30. Under the gun, calls my $30 bet, going to the turn, which is a pretty good one. It's the king of spades. This card improves us to the nut flush draw, and it's a scare card. If my opponent has 4s, 5s, a 6, maybe 7s and 8s, I can barrel this turn card and potentially this river card to make him fold. So I put out a big bet. I make it $115. He pretty quickly calls, and I felt like he was pretty strong here. I think he might have a king or possibly a 6 that he's slow playing, so we're looking for a spade. Going to the river, heads up, which is not it. It's a jack of diamonds. I decide to give up and check. He checks back. I tell him I have ace high. He shows king 8 of clubs. That is enough poker in one day. We end up racking up our chips, heading to the cage and cashing out for the night.
All right, guys, that is it for tonight's session, and I have to say, it is cold out here in Dallas. It's like lower 60s, and I am not used to this. I'm used to the hot, humid air in Florida, so I'm getting pretty chilly out here. But tonight we played the live stream 5-5-10 with a $20 straddle. Sometimes I ran hot in the beginning, picking up some hands, 3-betting, 4-betting, getting some bluffs through. I was up like $1,200 real quick. And then the last like 2 hours of the whole live stream, I was folding for what seemed like forever. Just couldn't get anything going. Ended up losing or winning a couple $100 on stream. I really don't know. And then went to the cash game tables. Same kind of thing, folding for a while. Couldn't really make any big hands. Anytime I won a hand, I lost a hand. So not the best session, kind of boring. Ended up losing about $475 in the session. But let me know what you guys think about doing the live stream voiceover compared to the iPhone on the table voiceover. I want to start doing some live stream vlogs like once or twice a month. So let me know what you guys think about that. It's kind of cool difference there with the graphics and being able to actually see me play with the commentators also commentating in the background too. So let me know down in the comments. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Coming out with videos just like this 2 times per week while here in Dallas. But I'm gonna head home, edit this video, get into some warmer clothes because this sweatshirt is not gonna, this t-shirt is not gonna do it out here. I don't even know what I'm saying. It's like 2 a.m. I'm tired. All right, that is it for this one. We're gonna wrap it up. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hit that like, subscribe, comment down below. Until next time, I'll see ya.